Holy Ghost, Batman by Amorloran. Summary. In a post-Legion time UA, 17-year-old Danny Phantom finds out he was adopted. His biological parents, Tim Drake and Stephanie Brown. Now he has to learn to accept how this changes things. And then Danny is back on top of all that? Great. Mature slice of life and shenanigans. Chapter 1. Ghost in the Family. Prologue. Clockwork waved his hand, merging the damaged timelines into one. And as Danny wished, the memory of his identity and the heroism he performed was removed from the minds of everyone on Earth except for those in Amity Park and those in the Ghost Zone. Time adjusted, events meshed together across the timeline to make a cohesive, if vastly different whole. Black Hand, the world's most famous hero after Danny Phantom, was known for helping to save the world that day, the year before when the anti-ectometeor was hurling towards Earth, and he used his powers to bring back the world's greatest hero for one final battle. He was respectful in asking for their assistance, only bringing back those who chose to help, and return them to peace after the Earth was safe. Black Hand, one of the universe's most wanted criminals, floated near the source wall. He drifted closer, the emphasis of space around him alive with the whispers of countless souls he had bound to his will. The source wall loomed before him, a tapestry of frozen gods and forgotten titans, their forms locked in eternal struggle, etched into the barrier like warning signs for lesser minds. Yet, to Black Hand, they were an invitation. His skeletal fingers reached outward, the black light crackling against the radiant surface. Life, death, all the same lie, he muttered, eyes reflecting endless galaxies. But you have hidden the truth, don't you? As he pressed his palm to the wall, he realized in horror how even gods could become trapped there, becoming petrified and merged into the wall. Batman stood among the crowd of costumed heroes, seeing their friends off one last time. The silence after salvation, heavier than any storm. He had watched the impossible, a world rendered ghost-like, untouchable, the meteor's rage passing harmlessly through as if the earth were air, and then, amidst the fading chorus of spectral heroes brought back by Black Hand to save them, he saw him, Jason, the wide-eyed Robin he had buried 20 years prior. His cave was shredded in phantom tatters, his domino mask still cracked, his face pale and luminous, and yet his eyes burned with the same reckless fire. For a heartbeat Bruce could move. All the walls he had built, the discipline, the silence, the unshakable mask, fractured at once. "Jason," he breathed, his voice breaking in a way it hadn't in decades. The boy ghost smiled faintly, the grin crooked, as it always had been. The bronze Bruce remembered from rooftops and late-night training sessions. "Miss me, B?" His voice carried the soft echo of the afterlife, thin and fading, even as he stood before him. Batman dropped to one knee, reaching out, his gauntlet hand passing uselessly through Jason's flickering form. "J-Lad," his voice cracked in grief. 14 years of guilt, of rage, of what-ifs, pressed into his chest, and for the first time in so long, Bruce let tears fall freely, uncaring who might see. Jason leaned forward as if to touch his father's shoulder, though they both knew he could not. "It's okay," Jason whispered, the boy's smile softening into something older than his years. "You saved them all. You saved me too." And then, like ash in the wind, he dissolved into the night, leaving Batman clutching nothing but memory and grief, whispering into the dark, "I never stopped loving you, son." A fist shattered the barrier around reality. A second answered it, pounding against the coffin. 3 years post-glitch. Danny was used to secrets. After all, being half-ghost meant living a life of hidden battles. Late nights hunting creatures from another dimension and lying to his parents and friends about why he always looked exhausted. But this secret, this was different. This one unraveled him. It started when Chaz found an old adoption record in a box tucked away in the attic. "Danny," she said carefully, holding a faded manila envelope. "I think you should see this." Inside were adoption papers and Danny's birth certificate, except the name on it wasn't one he recognized. What was clear was that the name was changed during the adoption. Near the bottom of the stack was a folded letter. The letter wasn't long. It was written by hand, signed with initials he didn't recognize. "We love him, but we can't keep him. Tell him someday, if you can, that he was loved. SB and TD." Danny stared at the paper for hours, his mind a whirlpool. His parents, Maddie and Jack, always said he was theirs. In every way that mattered, he was. But the letter said otherwise. The next day, Danny was out of it at school. Not that anyone but Sam and Tucker noticed. At least that's how Danny felt. It wasn't until Mr. Lancer called him back after class ended that Danny came around, if only to face his teacher's chastisement. Mr. Lancer watched the boy for a moment. He had once thought the boy was just a slacker, but he had been watching him for the last few school years, and thought he had a better measure of the boy, especially after the meteor incident revealed Danny's secret identity to the whole town. "Mr. Fenton, as I'm sure you know, I also serve as the school guidance counselor." Danny gave Mr. Lancer an odd, questioning look, as if he just couldn't see it. "Actually, that's news to me." Mr. Lancer gave him a deadpan look, and drew a mumbled sorry from Danny. "That said, I have been watching you for a while now. I'll rephrase. I've noticed not just how your grades have changed over the last few years, but how you have. For a time, I was greatly concerned about how Mr. Baxter's bullying had become." Danny looked up from his sulking. "Not that anyone tried to do anything about that." Mr. Lancer glared in disapproval. "You know I'm right." Mr. Lancer sighed. "Mr. Fenton, you're young, so I understand you have no personal experience with professionalism, but it's inappropriate to discuss the disciplinary measures against other students, even with the victim. I will assure you that the situation had processed to the point that Mr. Baxter's sports eligibility was in question, before your relationship seemed to have taken a turn. In light of more recent revelations, it actually might be more appropriate to discuss which incidents were due to student violence and which were due to your extracurricular activities." Danny stared at Mr. Lancer in awe. He had thought no one was in his corner because Dash was the school's sports star. He had never imagined that he almost got removed from all his teams because of his ghost fighting. Well, to be honest, Dash was never an overly physical bully. A couple of times in a locker or a swirly was about as far as he'd take it. He's really not imaginative, so he's kinda cliché. It didn't bother me as much, but I'm definitely the only one he targeted. He just didn't like me in particular. We'll put it behind us, though. He's actually a fan of Phantom, and I'm rambling, sorry. Mr. Lancer snorted. "Be that as it may, I'm concerned for your well-being, and have been for some time. It's obvious something has happened recently that affected you. I'm available if you're willing to share." Danny was silent to this. He didn't know how to feel about this. He hadn't talked to anyone about it yet, not even Sam and Tucker, not even to Chaz, who found it. Particularly, she might try to treat him when he really just needed his big sister. I just found out I'm adopted. Mr. Lancer was clearly surprised by this. And I take it from your reaction, it was not your parents who explained this? Then he nodded. Jazz and I found the papers in the attic while cleaning. I don't know how I feel about it yet. Mr. Lancer nodded. I should think not. If you want, we can set up an appointment with a psychologist who knows your condition to help you work through it. I'm sure you have other things to work through at this point. Thanks, Mr. Lancer. I will think about it. Can I get a note for my next class? It was left unsaid between them that his teacher had long ago come to the conclusion that ghosts didn't just create themselves, and then he really needed to talk to someone about that. Of course, Mr. Fenton. Try not to be any later than I'll have made you.